Hey everybody, welcome back to Movies You Missed podcast. This is episode 10. We're in the double digits. That's pretty bitchin', if I do say so myself. How you doing, V?
John, I am great and so pumped to be in the double digits. I still, every day, am just so excited to be doing this podcast with you and love the fact that we've really got some momentum here.
Absolutely. The momentum seems to continually chugging along, which is great, something that I was nervous about, but I don't seem to be so nervous about anymore.
Yeah, I think we got a good groove going, and thank you so much to those of you who are joining us again, and for our new listeners, welcome.
Welcome indeed. We hope that we can give you something fun to listen to, something to laugh about, something to cry about, something to really scratch your head and be like, oh my gosh, I forgot that movie came out that year.
Yes, I love those conversations that we have.
Same. Some of my favorite things has actually been some of the messages that I've been receiving on my personal and the podcast Instagram about people very excited about revisiting certain years, because we have really kind of gone all over the spectrum at this point. We've gone mid-90s, late 90s, early 2000s, and at this point, late 2000s, with talking of Top Gun Maverick at least.
Yes, I mean, certainly all over the spectrum of our lifetimes. I'm excited to go earlier than the 80s, and we've got some really great movies from the 40s and 50s coming your way soon.
Oh, yes, we absolutely do, and I'm very excited about getting into those, especially some of the musicals, some of the old comedies, some of the old horror movies even, I think are going to be a lot of fun to discuss and actually introduce some people to, because I'll tell you right now, there's a few that I know that I love that I don't think anybody's actually heard of.
Awesome. Yeah, and I was actually kind of surprised, given, for those of you who have listened to us before, I've talked about how horror is my least favorite genre. One of my first picks for 1940s and 1950s movies is actually a really great classic horror film, Creature Feature. So really excited to introduce people to that one. But that is for another day, because this episode is actually centered on Father's Day movies.
Yes, it is.
And it's our first holiday theme movie, and we're thinking about doing this from time to time just to not only make it timely for our listeners, but also not only for fun, but also for some inspiration.
Yeah, I like that. I'm excited about getting into both of these films.
Me too. So do you want to go ahead and jump right in?
I think we should.
All right. I believe I go first this week.
Yes, you do go first this week because I went first last week.
Oh, yes. Well, funny how there's a nice rhythm to that.
I like it.
Me too. All right. I picked a very classic movie. This is not one of the underrated gems from our list, but instead very, very well known. It is one of my favorite movies for many reasons, and it also, I believe, is the best of the series. This is the 1989 classic, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yes. 1989, just like your last pick of last week.
I know. It was a good year for movies.
Yes, it absolutely was. I agree.
Which I am happy to elaborate on a little bit later in the episode. But to start, I will say, for anyone who hasn't seen an Indiana Jones movie, first and foremost, you're totally missing out.
Oh, yes, you are.
And secondly, this is an adventure movie about an archaeologist named Indiana Jones, played by Harrison Ford, and he goes on awesome adventures and quests and basically treasure hunts in every movie. The very first movie was Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that came out in 1981. And was another just big blockbuster to continue to put Harrison Ford on the map after Star Wars.
Absolutely. Continued on the Steven Spielberg, George Lucas train also.
It did, which is a great partnership.
Oh my gosh, ridiculously awesome.
The second movie of this trilogy was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which did come out in 1984.
Oh, wonderful.
I think it sucks. You like that movie.
I love Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom, I think, is fantastic from beginning to end. It still freaks me out, and when I was a kid, it scared the living shit out of me.
So scarring. I was terrified through several scenes of that fucked up movie.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. The whole Kalima and, oh gosh.
Oh,
everything
that guy was such
underground. Yeah, the pulling of the heart out, that just was so scary. Well, anyway.
That is not the movie we are discussing today. Today we are discussing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Again, as I said, it came out in 89, and it really completed the trilogy. I really don't want to talk about the movie that came after that.
No, I don't think we need to get into that at all. We could spend a very long time going into that one. I only saw it one time in theaters, like opening weekend, and everybody walked out with their heads hanging low. Kind of like
So disappointed.
George Michael in the Arrested Development episodes when he gets really sad. It's like
Yes.
the Charlie Brown music's playing outside, and everyone's just like, what the fuck did we just watch?
Just a piece of your childhood died when you watched Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. So just a strange movie altogether.
The writing was terrible. And proving my theory that Indiana Jones is great when Nazis are the bad guys.
There you go.
Because the first and third movies are amazing.
That's true. Yeah, there were no Nazis in Temple of Doom.
No.
Very
And
good point.
this movie has Nazis as the bad guys. It is 1938, and it is a race to find the Holy Grail, which is the cup that Jesus Christ drank from in the Last Supper. And one question I have before I dive too much more into this movie, the glass you are currently drinking out of, is that a Paramount glass?
It is actually, yes. I bought
Very
two
fitting.
of these.
Very
yeah. I ended up on my last season of NCIS Los Angeles, I decided to finally use my employee discount, and I went to the store on the lot, and I bought this glass along with another one, a t-shirt, and a hat, and I am drinking from my Paramount glass.
And the reason I ask is because Paramount Pictures produced this movie, and it's more recognizable than most other movies that they produce because of the fact that in every Indiana Jones movie, the Paramount logo, which is the big mountain, comes up on screen and then it fades into a real life mountain in the movie.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yes, and so they've done that for every Indiana Jones movie, including this one. This one fades into a mountain that is in Utah and actually Arches National Park, which is a beautiful place. And it opens as Indiana Jones is a very young kid. And it gives us a little bit of backstory about this character we've grown to love. And the actor who plays young Indiana Jones is actually River Phoenix.
No way.
Yes.
I actually did not watch the credits this time around. I normally do at home and in theaters. And I'm going to be honest with you, as I'm watching Last Crusade, this is the first time I've watched The Last Crusade in at least 6 years, because my wife and I ended up going to Amoeba one day because she's like, I want to have all the Indiana Jones movies on DVD. And I was like, okay, my love. So we went and bought them, and over the course of 3 days watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade. And that was about 6 years ago. So it'd been a while for me since I had watched Last Crusade, and I did not remember a single thing of how this movie began.
Oh, interesting. Yes, it is I think a really fun intro, not only for the character, but also just the way to start the movie. And River Phoenix now actually is probably known for being Joaquin Phoenix's brother, even though he's his older brother.
Right.
But he was very much an up-and-coming actor in the 80s and early 90s, and unfortunately died of an accidental drug overdose at Johnny Depp's nightclub in Los Angeles.
Yeah, the Viper Room.
The Viper Room. And there is a very, very good book. It's a biography on River Phoenix called The Last Night at the Viper Room. I highly recommend it for anyone interested in his story or film in the early 90s. It's a very well done, respectful biography that is truthful, but not exploitative. I highly recommend it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he was picked because Harrison Ford recommended him specifically to Steven Spielberg. Harrison Ford and River Phoenix had played father-son in one of Harrison's favorite all-time movies, The Mosquito Coast.
I've never even heard of that movie.
Yeah, I heard it's very good. I haven't seen it either, but I've heard good things. Yeah.
The Mosquito Coast. Fascinating.
And during this intro sequence, we learn a couple different things about how Indiana Jones came to be. One of them is his fear of snakes, because anybody who's seen Raiders of the Lost Ark will remember the classic line, "Snakes. Why'd it have to be snakes?" He hates snakes. Well, they explain why. And also how he got that scar.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I like that.
I did too, and I can tell you in real life, Harrison Ford got that scar through a car accident in his 20s.
No kidding.
Yeah, they explained it a much cooler way in Indiana Jones, which is a whip trying to tame a lion.
That's right. Yes, I remember that. Yeah, that was cool. Oh, wow. All right. I like that.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I love this movie so much and it holds such a special place in my heart is that I think of my dad every single time I watch Indiana Jones. When I was little, I recognized that, oh, Indiana Jones and my dad both have the same scar. My dad
Oh.
has a really gnarly scar. It's on his lip, lower lip, and into his chin. He also got it from a car accident, funny enough,
Oh, wow.
in his 20s. And also,
Whoa.
my dad wears a fedora every single day.
Oh, really?
Every single day for my entire life, my dad has worn a fedora. He never wears baseball caps. That is the hat that he wears. And obviously, so does Indiana Jones. And I thought when I was a kid that those parallels really meant that they were, connected or knew each other in some way.
Sure,
You're a kid. I'm like under 10 when I'm watching these movies, or
Right.
around 10. And so, yeah, the Indiana Jones has always held a special place in my heart just because of the connections I, made as a kid with my dad.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and the reason I picked this movie for this week specifically is the father-son relationship that happens in this movie, and that's why I picked it for Father's Day. Sean Connery was cast as Harrison Ford's father in this movie.
So awesome.
So awesome. And he was Steven Spielberg's very first choice because
awesome.
he likes this little hint backstory that James Bond is Indiana Jones's dad.
Oh.
James Bond and Indiana Jones in the same movie, super badass.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But I loved the chemistry of these two men.
Absolutely. Oh, man, it really, leaks through the TV.
They absolutely seemed like father and son, even though they're only 12 years apart in real life.
Oh, wow. No way.
He certainly looked old enough to be his dad.
He definitely... Oh, yeah, it's the white beard,
Yeah, and
I
the
think
balding.
that was really what... And the balding, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, just the tension that they have, the resentment is there. It was very authentic. I thought they did a fantastic job playing father and son.
I will wholeheartedly agree with you on that one.
I also thought that Sean Connery did a great job playing this bumbling professor.
Yes, he did.
If you think, speaking of James Bond, he's this slick assassin, and he comes into this movie, and I didn't realize this as a kid, and now as an adult, I actually respect that transformation now that I've seen it. He did a great job being this guy who needed to be rescued.
Yes, he really did.
And so he is part of this plot and part of searching for the Holy Grail because he is a Holy Grail expert. Sean Connery's character, named Dr. Henry Jones, is obsessed with finding the Holy Grail. And this is actually where my love of journaling came around as well, because I always thought that journal that he created, that's a big plot point of this movie, was so cool. And so with this journal and this race to find the Holy Grail, a few things happen that really drive this movie, including the kidnapping of Dr. Henry Jones, Indiana Jones's father. And this movie goes all over the world. It is filmed in some cool locations.
So many awesome locations that I would love to visit.
Yes, Utah, another part of America. They go into Venice, Italy, and Petra, Jordan, where the face of that temple comes from, is actually that's a real place, which I think is
awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So after I had posted this on my personal page and our Movies You Missed Instagram that I was watching Indiana Jones and Last Crusade, a friend of mine in the bourbon community sent me a photo of him sitting outside of the location where they had figured out where the tomb was, and he wrote to me, "It belongs in a museum." And I thought that was great.
Yes, which is a good line in the movie. Yes, and this movie is PG-13. It is very, very family friendly in a lot of ways. However,
Oh, yeah.
if you have problems with reptiles or rodents, just be forewarned.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you get squeamish looking at stuff like that.
So yes, there are a couple scenes in this movie that do have a big old pile of snakes and a big old pile of rats. And 2,000 rats were bred specifically for production of this movie.
Wow. 2,000.
Breeding them was necessary because ordinary rats would have been riddled with diseases.
I guess that's actually a good point.
And they couldn't have guaranteed it. And so they made sure and they bred rats for this movie, which, it's rats. It probably only took like 3 weeks to get that many.
I don't think it took very long at all.
No, and so in this movie, as I mentioned, Nazis are the bad guys. One piece of trivia that I've actually known for quite some time, but I definitely wanted to mention it in this episode, is there's a big Nazi rally. Remember, this is 1938, and there's a big Nazi rally in Berlin that Indiana Jones has to infiltrate. And so there is a huge rally of Nazis, and even Adolf Hitler is pictured here. First of all, Steven Spielberg made this movie. Let's remember that.
I was thinking that watching this.
And remember, he made Schindler's List.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
He takes this very, very seriously. And so when he had all of the extras at the Nazi rally do the Nazi salute, he had them simultaneously put their other arms behind their backs and cross their fingers.
Really?
Yeah, that's one piece of trivia from the rally. But the one I actually wanted to talk about, and the one I've known for a while and wanted to make sure to bring up, was most of the uniforms worn by Nazis at this book burning rally in Berlin are authentic World War II uniforms, not replicas.
Whoa. No way.
A cache of old uniforms was found in Germany by the costume designer and were used in this movie.
That is amazing.
And it's always creeped me out so bad that they were real Nazi uniforms. Just how gross that must have been.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And they've likely been washed, but still doesn't.
Oh, no,
wash
I
away
mean
what
like
they've done.
spiritually gross, like
right.
karmically,
Yeah.
just disgusting. Yeah, I can't imagine the chills you could get from putting on a real Nazi uniform and just how figuratively dirty you would feel doing that.
That's a good point. I feel like I would definitely need several showers after that.
And holy water or something. Yes, and I truly hope that they were all burned after the filming of this movie.
Yeah, they could have been.
Yeah, so I always thought that was a creepy but interesting piece of trivia on this film.
That is a very fascinating piece of trivia because we always look at costumes as looking as authentic as they can because of the research that the costume designer will do and, pass along that sentiment towards their team of people. But that's definitely fascinating that they were authentic Nazi uniforms.
Yes, and especially because it was, like, again, Steven Spielberg, who is very notably made a very anti-Nazi movie.
Yes, he did. Yeah, including the first one as well.
Yes. And Harrison Ford in this movie is, really is establishing himself in this trilogy as well as, with Star Wars as a pretty big badass. I mean, he's awesome. He's awesome in real life. He flies planes, and he is very well known for doing a lot of his own stunts. And if anybody will remember the filming of The Force Awakens, he broke his leg on set doing a stunt. He's a badass, and he did many of his own stunts in this movie, just like a lot of his others, including the other Indiana Jones. And according to the legendary British stuntman Vic Armstrong, who actually, funny enough, is known for a lot of James Bond stunts. So it's kind of funny. We talked about that earlier. He had to pull Harrison to one side and ask him to let him do some work because Harrison Ford was doing so much of it himself.
That's awesome. I like hearing that.
Yeah, and Vic Armstrong said later that if Harrison wasn't such a great actor, he would have made a really good stuntman.
No way. That's really cool. I like that.
So yeah, I dig him. I'm a big fan of Harrison Ford's.
How can you not be? Beyond Star Wars and Indiana Jones, I mean, there's so many other great movies that he's been in that everybody's like, oh my gosh, Harrison Ford was so good in that. But, he also has some shit ones like Hollywood Homicide.
Oh, God, that movie's so bad. I was wondering
it's
if you're
so bad, but it's great. It's so bad, but it's great. Josh Hartnett.
Or Random Hearts with Kristen Scott Thomas. God, that movie sucked.
I never saw that one.
Oh, it was terrible. But some of his great ones that are some of my favorites that aren't out of those trilogies are The Fugitive, Clear and Present Danger. I love him as Jack Ryan. I really liked him in the remake of Sabrina, to be totally honest with you. I thought that was really good
Sabrina
movie.
Was pretty good.
It's a very good movie. And also Witness, so good movies.
I never saw Witness and never saw Clear and Present Danger, but I've seen The Fugitive, which I love. Yeah, I have Patriot Games, which I still have not watched. That's another Jack Ryan. Yeah, I recently got that from my mother. She bought it at a dollar store on Blu-ray, and she said, "I think you'd like this." I said, "All right, buy it for me then."
Yes,
and I haven't watched it yet.
Other reasons why this movie holds such a special place in my heart is because it is my first memory of motorcycles. I have been told that from the time I was 2, I asked for motorcycles. Anyone who knows me knows that I have always had an obsession with them. I asked for motorcycles from a very young age. My mother said no. I was not allowed to have a motorcycle while I lived in her house. Wow. And so when I turned 18 and went to college, I went and bought one. And I've been riding them ever since. And that's how I got into racing and just absolutely love motorcycles. And two wheels are the easiest path to my heart in a lot of ways. And these motorcycles, I've always thought they were super cool with all the gear on them, and there's a really good chase scene and battle with a sidecar, which I also actually used to race, and these Nazis on motorcycles. It was a really, really fun scene, and I've always really loved that in the movie.
I will always remember the time that you and I went to go see Avatar together, and I had told you about a Vegas trip that I had just recently taken, and I think it had been about a week after I'd been back from Vegas, and I was still kind of in recovery mode because Vegas does that to you. And you're like, how do you do Vegas with your heart condition? And I looked at you and said, how do you do your stunts and your racing with your heart condition? And you were like, touche, John. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. We just do it because we're alive and we want to do something, you know?
Exactly. Which is, I think, one of the reasons why you and I are both as healthy as we are is because we weren't in a plastic bubble growing up and now as adults
Not at all.
Responsible for ourselves. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We risked things, and here we are. Another motorcycle story that sticks in my brain about when you and I were working together was it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We were in the Malibu Hills, and I wrapped you on this movie that we probably had another 3-4 hours of shooting on, and you were getting on your motorcycle, and I was like, are you going back down to Huntington Beach right now? Or it maybe not Huntington Beach, but
Manhattan.
it was somewhere.
Manhattan
Thank
Beach.
you.
Yeah.
Manhattan Beach. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to Manhattan Beach tonight. I said, through the canyons right now? And you're like, yeah, I'll be fine. And I'm like, just text me when you get home. And you did. And I was just like, my gosh. And not that, nobody can venture their way through the Malibu canyons or anything like that. It was just
it's 2 in the
a very
morning.
long day.
Yeah.
It was 2 in the morning. We had been going since like 9 a.m. that day, and just want to make sure you got home safe.
No, I love that, and God, you have a really good memory. And and that is true. I mean, for a long time in my 20s, that's actually the only vehicle I own. And
oh wow,
yeah, I'd leave the racetrack or I'd leave a shoot, and as you and I both have talked about, they can last a very, very long time. And yeah, I'd be super late at night and have to suit up and go ahead and ride home. But no, it was very kind of you to be concerned and also make sure I texted you when I got home. I always love when people ask me that. It means they care.
Yeah, and the final day of that shoot in the Malibu house, I remember following you as much as I could down PCH, and then you disappeared into the wilderment of PCH, and I turned near Pepperdine, and that's how I got home. And then I remember the next day, you replied to the email that you got the call sheet for the next overnight, and I was like, all right, she made it home.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard because especially living in LA, there are only so many opportunities you get to A, be on a fun, twisty road, and B, have no traffic. So
yes,
I was itching.
Exactly. Yeah, and PCH was wide open that night.
It was so nice. Yes. I remember that. That was great.
And for those that don't know PCH is Pacific Coast Highway along the coast of Southern California, along the beach, all the way up through.
Highway 1.
Yeah, it'll take you all the way up to Oregon, essentially, if you just take it north.
And we've talked about this before on a previous episode. I don't know if you caught it, but this movie has the Wilhelm scream.
Oh, yes, I do remember talking about it. I do not recall where in the movie the Wilhelm scream is.
When there's a Nazi battle between a group of people who do not want them to find the Holy Grail.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
yes,
I do not recall that at all.
There are a lot of fights. There's a lot of action in this movie. I was so stoked with how well this movie held up being over 30 years old. It is a badass, fun adventure movie that is full of action, a lot of different modes of transportation. There's running, there's motorcycles, there's a tank. There's so many different ways that people are chasing each other through this race to get to the Holy Grail. It is very, very fun.
Very, very fun indeed. Yes. And I actually will say that my wife enjoyed actually watching this one with me.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Yeah. She didn't enjoy my pick because she actually did not watch any of it with me.
Oh, really? That's too bad. It's actually, I figured she would have enjoyed it.
I thought so too, but she really does not like it.
Now, a few different writers have credits for writing this movie. There is George Lucas, as you mentioned, partnered with Steven Spielberg on this movie. He helped write it. And then Jeffrey Boehm, who he wrote and created this long forgotten and early canceled 90s TV show with Bruce Campbell in it called Briscoe County Jr., which I loved. It only lasted for a season or two, but it was super fun, and he wrote and created it, which made me really happy when I was doing the research for this movie.
I never heard of that show.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was a Western, so that's probably why. But it was a sci-fi Western.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He also wrote the Lethal Weapon movies 1 through 3.
No way.
Yeah, and the Billy Zane-led superhero movie The Phantom.
Yes. Which I actually have never seen.
It doesn't hold up.
No, it doesn't?
No, it was, as I mentioned before, it was one of those 90s comic book movies that walked so Marvel could run.
Okay.
And the reason why I bring up the writers is because of the fact that there are some really good quotes and one-liners in this movie. And one of the things that happens is that when Sean Connery and Harrison Ford are talking about this specific woman, and
Yes,
Sean Connery goes, "She talks in her sleep."
Yeah.
Harrison Ford does a double take. It's so good. So good.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yes. And my favorite quote of the movie, actually, just because of the way it's delivered, is this Nazi is interrogating Sean Connery's character.
What is this book? That miserable little diary of yours. Here's the map. The book is useless, and yet you come all the way back to Berlin to get it. Why? What are you hiding? What does the diary tell you that it doesn't tell us?
It tells me that goose-stepping morons like yourself should try reading books instead of burning them.
He delivers it so well. I love that quote.
That is a good moment, yeah.
So a few other people in this movie that I think are pretty notable. First, as I mentioned, Sean Connery was James Bond. A couple other movies I really liked him in are The Rock, just because it's good fun.
Welcome to the Rock. Michael Bay.
Yes.
Great movie. Gosh, what a killer movie.
I also really like him in this movie that most people have not seen. It's called Medicine Man, and Lorraine Bracco's in the movie as well. And I really, really enjoy that movie.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I might pick it at some point just because it definitely flew under the radar.
I would say another one that flew under the radar, but a lot of people know the name of Finding Forrester.
Yeah, I like that movie a lot, actually.
Great movie,
Yes,
Finding Forrester.
I do too.
Wonderful film.
And he's also in The Untouchables, like I talked about before, which you have not seen
yes.
yet. Kevin
No, I have
Costner
not.
driven movie. So Andy Garcia's in that movie as well. Really young Andy Garcia. It's a great movie. It'll be on the list.
Fantastic.
And then John Rhys-Davies is great in this movie. He's reprising his role from Raiders of the Lost Ark. He is recently became really mainstream with his role as Gimli the Dwarf in the Lord of the Rings series.
And he played Treebeard as well in Two Towers.
Oh, he did that voice. That's right. I forgot about that.
It's been a long time since I've seen a hobbit.
Nice. That was really good. I was introduced to him through a short-lived sci-fi series in the 90s, TV series called Sliders.
Oh my gosh, I remember that
Right?
one.
Jerry O'Connell?
I never watched it.
Oh, it was great.
but
It got canceled too soon.
Yeah, that was like 93, 94.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah.
I do remember Sliders, yeah.
But that's how I was introduced to him. And lastly, I want to mention Julian Glover, who is such a good bad guy. He is the guy who kind of funds the expedition.
Oh,
and he is General Veers in The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh.
I was like, oh, cool. He was part of Space Nazis. Which is kind of the equivalent of the Empire. And also, more recently, he was Grandmaster Pycelle in Game of Thrones.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, this is a great movie. It absolutely holds up. Great father-son dynamic, and one of Steven Spielberg's best. Some of my favorites are this one, E.T., Schindler's List, and I actually really think Minority Report is a great sci-fi entry for him as well.
Hell yes, I love Minority Report so much. Most Spielberg films I've usually enjoyed, and I really fell in love with him with Jurassic Park.
Oh, nice.
And I like you said, I love Schindler's List. I love Jaws. I think Catch Me If You Can is fantastic, and every now and then, I actually really liked War Horse. I don't know if a lot of people saw that one, but War Horse was actually a very good film, and he did a great job with that one too.
Okay. And I can tell you that one of the reasons he made this movie was to atone for the criticism that he received for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
No way.
Yep, it is, and this is his favorite of the Indiana Jones film franchise. So see, Steven Spielberg and I
Really?
agree. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. All right.
And since you mentioned Jurassic Park, Harrison Ford and Sean Connery declined the roles of Alan Grant and John Hammond, respectively, in Jurassic Park.
No way. Oh, that would be interesting.
I can't picture Harrison Ford as Alan Grant, to be honest. I can't really.
I don't think I could either.
I know he plays a professor in this movie, but come on, he really does play a almost swashbuckling hero as an
Very
Indiana
much
Jones.
So. Yeah, absolutely.
John Hammond, I absolutely can picture Sean Connery as a rich, kooky old guy.
I could totally picture Sean Connery. Oh, absolutely. I don't care much for lawyers, do you? Like, you know, like that would be.
Oh, say
welcome.
spared no expense.
Spared no expense. I think that would work. I think it would actually work. Welcome to Jurassic Park, Dr. Alan Grant. Yeah, that would work. That would be pretty awesome. I'd be down with that. But we had Richard Attenborough, and we all love Richard Attenborough.
He was amazing. Yeah, he was great in that movie. No shade to him. That was fantastic casting.
But that goes into my little tidbit several episodes ago when we talked about how Robert De Niro turned down Barbossa. If there was a pseudo-universe that we could actually see Harrison Ford as Alan Grant and Sean Connery as John Hammond, I would like to see that version.
Yeah, just to see how what comes of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And the cool thing is, because this movie is so legendary and iconic, Indiana's trademark hat, jacket, and whip currently reside in the Smithsonian National Museum, which is cool.
Hell yeah, that's badass.
Yeah. And I've always wondered what the soldier inside the tank says when he's looking up the periscope and he sees Harrison Ford fighting with the Nazi commander. And he turns and he goes, "Die Amerikaner, die Kämpfer wie Weiber." And I'm like, what the fuck does he say? I've never ever known. So I looked it up when we watched it, and it says the Americans, they fight like girls.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. That about wraps up Indiana Jones. I am, as you can tell, a huge fan of this movie, highly recommend it, and it's the first time I really considered it an interesting father-son movie as well as all of the other things it has to offer you. So I was really, really excited to talk about this for Father's Day.
I was too. I really liked it. And like I said, it had been a solid 6 years since I had seen it last, and I didn't remember a good portion of the movie. And it was a very enjoyable movie. And I'm going to tell you right now, I very likely will do a trilogy day and watch all three of them in succession. So I like to do that. My wife and I have done that we did that with Indiana Jones when we first got the 3 DVDs. Then we did it with Lord of the Rings, and we did it with the Divergent movies because my wife likes the Divergent movies.
I've done it a couple times with the Lord of the Rings extended edition.
Ooh.
It just takes, a full day dedication to do that. But I'm not anymore since the pandemic, but I've been waiting for a time to get, when I get sick, and I'm like, oh, this is a great time to just like hunker down on the couch and watch a trilogy. Of course, now with the pandemic, I'm like, don't get sick.
Exactly. Yeah. My last trilogy day was all 3 Bad Boys movies.
Oh God!
And that was about a year and a half ago after Bad Boys 3 came out. Bad Boys for Life, which I thought was awesome.
Trilogies are hit and miss, as we've talked about, and as we know, trilogies and series. And I like the fact that we just continue to state this emphatically, that it's a trilogy, and we're ignoring not only number 4 but number 5 that's coming out.
Yes, we have completely. I don't know. We'll see what number 5 looks like. It might be, a good reprisal, but you never know.
I haven't heard anything. I haven't read anything about the storyline yet. Have you?
I have not. The only thing that I've seen is a teaser photo of Harrison Ford.
I saw that recently when they said it was coming out in 2023.
Yep, that's all I've seen.
Yep, me too. All right, well, we'll see what happens. I'm sure we'll talk about it on the show when we watch it in theaters.
We likely will, yes.
So as I mentioned, this came out in 1989. It was number 2 for the year. In 1989, and as you mentioned, my Ray Liotta movie pick did come out in 1989 and was number 14 on the year.
Right.
Indiana Jones and Last Crusade was number 2. Batman was number 1. Other movies that made the top 10 in the box office that year were Rain Man, Ghostbusters 2, Dead Poet Society, Back to the Future 2, and When Harry Met Sally was number 11.
Oh, I love When Harry Met Sally.
The Abyss was number 18. We've talked about that. I'm excited to...
Top 20.
Yep, I'm excited to cover that movie in an upcoming episode. And
As am I.
Also, speaking of top 20, I feel like families go one of two ways for Christmas movies. They either pick A Christmas Story or they pick National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
My family is very, very much a Christmas Vacation family. We watch it every year on Christmas Eve together, and that was number 20 for 1989.
Awesome.
Yes.
I do love Christmas Vacation. My wife does not, so when I watch it, she's usually not in the room or she's occupied with something else.
Well, as we talked about, comedy is very divisive. It's got to be the right style for each person. It's got to fit.
Absolutely, yeah. 100%. I get it.
So yes, 1989 was a great year. This came in at number 2. And now, in 2022, you can watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade if you have a Paramount Plus streaming subscription.
Fantastic.
Or you can rent it on a lot of streaming services, including Amazon Prime.
There you go.
Yeah. Alrighty, you ready to get into your pick for this week?
I think we can, yeah. I don't mind jumping in a pond right now to get into my pick.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yes, of
All
course.
right, sir, the floor is yours.
Well, I chose the 2003 Ewan McGregor, Albert Finney, Jessica Lange, Billy Crudup led Big Fish, directed by Tim Burton, written by John August. John August has come onto the scene with many films from the last 2-3 decades. He most notably, I would say for some people, would be the first Charlie's Angels remake with Cameron Diaz and Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu. He also wrote Titan A.E., which was a really awesome sci-fi animated film, and he wrote a very strange movie with Ryan Reynolds and Melissa McCarthy titled The Nines. If you've never seen that movie, it is a very strange movie. And,
Coming from you, that means a lot.
Yes, no,
if you
it's
say
a
it's
weird
strange,
one.
then it's a weird ass movie.
I bought it blindly at a 5 for $25 deal at Blockbuster Video many years ago, and I've watched it several times, and I still am not entirely sure what the hell I'm watching, but it's enjoyable enough because it's Ryan Reynolds and Melissa McCarthy, and they both play off each other very well. John August also most recently wrote the live-action Aladdin with Guy Ritchie, which I've told you that you should check out. Tim Burton, we all know Tim Burton as the director of Edward Scissorhands, Batman, Batman Returns, most recently Big Eyes and Miss Peregrine's School for Peculiar Children.
And if anybody has listened to episode 7 with Monkey Bone, they will know that Tim Burton did not direct Nightmare Before Christmas.
Exactly.
Or James and
yes.
the Giant Peach.
No, he did not. So Big Fish is about a young man whose father is dying, and this young man and his father have a bit of a tumultuous relationship, and that relationship spawns from the fact that his father, played by Albert Finney, whose character's name is Edward Bloom, has been just telling these insanely fantastical, unbelievable stories to his son since his son has been born. And not only his son's best friends, his son's girlfriend, his son's now soon-to-be wife, who is played by Marion Cotillard. And if anybody knows who Marion Cotillard is, she is a fantastic actress. She was nominated for La Vie en Rose several years ago. She is in The Dark Knight Rises. She is also
Didn't she win for La Vie en Rose?
I actually think she did win for La Vie en Rose, yes. And she is she's in one of my favorite Woody Allen films, Midnight in Paris. She is also in one of my favorite foreign films of all time called A Very Long Engagement. And one cool thing about Marion Cotillard and Big Fish was that she wanted to be in this movie so badly because of how much she respected Tim Burton as a director that during her audition process, she slept with the script under her pillow.
I did not know where that sentence was going.
And I just thought that was really cool that she respected Tim Burton as a director so much that she really wanted to play this character. And this character is a French woman that is marrying an American man, and she does it very beautifully. She's very elegant. She's very sweet. She's very soft. We also may know Marion Cotillard from Inception. She plays Maul, who is Leonardo DiCaprio's wife.
Inception.
So good. I just really like that she really wanted to be in this movie so badly that she slept with the script under her pillow. So a couple other people in this movie that we may recognize: Albert Finney. He's been around for quite some time. Jessica Lange, most recently from the American Horror Story series. Danny DeVito's in this movie. He plays the ringmaster of the circus that Edward Bloom kind of falls into working in. So a little bit more about Big Fish story-wise. Albert Finney plays Edward Bloom. Billy Crudup plays Will Bloom, father and son, and Will Bloom has essentially decided that he's going to get the truth once and for all from his father on his father's deathbed about the stories that he's been telling him as a kid up until the point where he got married. So much to the chagrin of Will Bloom, Edward Bloom tells this story yet again at his wedding. Ultimately, we come to find out that Will Bloom has not spoken to his father in 3 years since the wedding. So that's a little bit twisted, and that kind of resonates with me a little bit because my father actually did not speak with his father for a year back when my father was just about to be 20. So in a way, this movie resonates with me in that regard, and it resonates with me in the fact that my father has also told me some pretty fantastical stories. My father grew up in Long Island, New York. My father was in the Navy, and my father has definitely seen his fair share of the world. And stories, come from fathers and mothers to their children, and they're likely told differently over the course of time, kind of like how we discussed in Unforgiven, how the game Telephone kind of, So things change, and it really resonated with me because my father just told me stories all the time, and stories about his life, and, you always wonder, like, what was true and what wasn't. So I like that aspect of this movie in particular because we're finding out that maybe this wasn't all just some kind of made-up story that his father has been telling him his entire life.
I like how in this movie you build a lot of empathy for both of these men. That you understand why Will's so frustrated. He's been hearing these tall tales for his entire life, and at his own wedding, his dad kind of steals his thunder and tells one of these stories. And then at the same time, Edward Bloom seems like a really genuine, nice guy who seemed like a pretty good father. And so, part of you is like, oh, your son's being a little bit of an asshole, and you can really see both sides. And I think they painted that very beautifully in this movie.
I agree with that. Yes, I will fully agree with you on that. And the last time I watched Big Fish was about a year and a half ago. And I had just gotten it on 4K because Big Fish is a beautiful movie to look at.
Beautiful movie.
I mean, it's very, very gorgeous. It is. The cinematography is amazing. And it also, kind of like Field of Dreams, has that goldish hue kind of around certain scenes that make it feel very dreamlike. And, is this really happening? Is this not happening? And like you said, Edward Bloom was just this genuinely nice guy, this interesting character. He had expectations for himself that were not small town based. And he wants to get out there and see the world. So at one point or another, he stumbles across this town that really that's worried about this monster that's eating off the livestock and stuff like that. Come to find out that it's actually this very large human being that just needs to eat because he's so big. And I really like the way that Edward Bloom approaches him and how they form a friendship, and they decide to leave this town together because the town is too small for both of them.
That's my favorite quote of the whole movie.
Yeah, it's just great. And I think that majority of people can watch Big Fish and be like, I am a big fish in a small pond. And that was said several times throughout the movie. And I really like that.
Yes, and for me it really spoke to me because for most of my life people have told me that my laugh is too loud, that I talk too loud. And that, I'm a very boisterous person. I have ADD. I've got a lot of energy. My nickname's Tigger for a good reason.
Yeah.
And so I've always tried to figuratively make myself smaller to fit into social situations. And that's why that quote really, really spoke to me. And he says, maybe you're not too big. Maybe the town is just too small.
There you go. Yeah. See, we all can relate to something like that. And I really, really like that about the movie itself. And this movie is actually based off of a novel written by a man named Daniel Wallace. And I was actually in a bookstore yesterday and I saw the novelization of Big Fish and I flipped through it for a little bit and I read a couple of the pages. And what I read translated to screen gorgeously. Like it really is from, again, what I've read, which was not much, but the translation from page to screen is very, very well done.
Great. It's always nice when that happens.
Yeah. So beyond Edward Bloom leaving this town with this giant, he decides to take a shortcut. And in that shortcut, he stumbles upon a fairy tale-esque type town. And that fairy tale-esque type town is green grass, white picket fence, very facade-like. It's very, very small. These people apparently have been expecting Edward Bloom, but they keep telling him he's early, and he doesn't know why he's early. He doesn't know why they're expecting him. He doesn't know any of this stuff. He just kind of goes along with it. And after a little while, he realizes that he should not remain there. He needs to actually get back out there and see the rest of the world. So that's another sequence that I really like, is that he has stayed in this town to the point where his hair has gotten a little bit longer. He's gotten a little comfortable. And at one point or another, he realizes that he hasn't fulfilled exactly what he's looking for. So he decides that he's going to leave this town of Spectre. And Spectre is almost like a Stepford Wives type of a town.
It's creepy.
And yeah, a little creepy.
It's a little too perfect.
Yeah, exactly. A little too perfect, a little creepy. So it very interesting. And, a lot of people stumble on small towns and they end up planting themselves there. And that's where they feel most alive and most happy. So after that, he ends up stumbling upon this circus and starts working at this circus only because he has, quote unquote, seen the love of his life as he's a spectator at this circus. And the ringmaster, played by Danny DeVito, tells him that he will give him one piece of information about this woman every month if he works these Joe jobs for him around the circus. So every 30 days... Edward Bloom is going up to Ringmaster, and he's like, "It's been 30 days, sir." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, she likes music. She likes dandelions. Her name is this. She's going to college." And it's one of the best sequences in the movie. And the voiceover is, "When you meet the love of your life, time stops." And it is just a phenomenal sequence in that movie where he's pushing the popcorn aside and he makes eye contact. Yeah, he makes eye contact with the young lady, but she doesn't actually see him because his time has stopped, but nothing else has. So everything has to catch up to, come back to reality, which I thought was also fantastically done. And this actress's name is Alison Lohman, and she is actually in one of my favorite horror films called Drag Me to Hell, and that's going to be on the list as well.
Oh, great.
So young Edward Bloom is played by one of my favorites, Ewan McGregor. One of the main reasons why Ewan McGregor was cast as young Edward Bloom was because young photos of Albert Finney looked almost identical to Ewan McGregor.
Really?
Yes, and I've seen them, and it is like, oh, shit. So that was, I thought, a very cool little piece of information.
Very cool.
Only is Ewan McGregor a great actor, he looks like the man that he's playing the younger version of. Albert Finney, British actor, and the voiceovers, Albert Finney's voice is just fun to listen to.
I loved him and Aaron Brockovich.
Oh, definitely. So a little bit more, I don't want to give too much away about Big Fish because I could really talk about it for a very long time and get into the real nitty-gritty of it. But one thing that I think was very fascinating to find out was that Steven Spielberg was attached to direct this movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he had an actor in mind to play old Edward Bloom, and that actor was Jack Nicholson.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, could you imagine? That would be just another pseudo-universe movie. I would like to see it with Jack Nicholson, but I can't picture it with anybody but Albert Finney.
There's a magical quality to movies that Tim Burton makes that I haven't seen in Spielberg. Spielberg seems... he's just a little more straightforward.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's more fantasy in Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Even though we have E.T. and Jurassic Park and Close Encounters
But those are like very clean sci-fi, very, straightforward sci-fi movies. The fantasy-driven, magical element to Tim Burton movies is really present in this one.
Oh, absolutely.
It is one of my favorite Tim Burton movies.
It is one of mine as well. And I saw this in theaters opening weekend, and I went with a couple of my buddies, and we walked out and like, that was a really good-ass movie. And it really is a good-ass movie. Like, it's really, really good. It's very heartwarming. It's also very sad at some times. It's funny. It's got great visuals. And another actress that's in this movie that I really enjoyed, and she kind of plays this character majority of the time that she's ever been cast, is Helena Bonham Carter. She plays the older witch. And
who has to be in a Tim Burton movie.
Well, not anymore.
Well, not anymore.
But back then, yes.
Yes.
I think their last one was Sweeney Todd.
Ugh, that's actually kind of disappointing, to be honest.
I like Sweeney Todd. I know why people don't like it, but I like it. It holds a special place in my heart. But I like the story also I like when Edward Bloom is talking about when he was a young boy and he ended up, going to meet this witch, and the witch has the eye that shows you how you're going to die. And all his friends in that group see how they're going to die, and we see how all of his friends are going to die except for him. And there's some really twisted deaths for some of his friends. And I don't know if you noticed, but there was a young girl in that group that is a very famous singer these days. I'm wondering if you might have caught that.
I don't think I did.
Oh, I had to rewind it because I was like, there's no way. But it was It was Miley Cyrus.
Really?
Yeah, young Miley Cyrus was
Aw.
in Big Fish in the sequence when they go to talk to the witch, which I thought was really cool.
And I like the way they took that storyline and that plot point and used it for Edward Bloom throughout the movie. He's going down that creepy path, and he's like, well, I know the way I'm going to die, and it's not this way, and it's not today,
Exactly.
so I'm okay.
Yeah.
And there's that classic kind of party question or question amongst friends, that you ask, like, oh, if you knew how and when you were going to die, would you want to know? And a lot of people say yes, and a lot of people say no. And I like how they took that, and he used it in a really beautiful, positive way to go on adventures in his life and do amazing things, because he's like, well, I know I'm not going to die today, so saddle up, let's go. I loved it.
It was really, really cool. Yeah, because even when he sees it as a kid, he goes, that's how I go, and then walks away, and you're like, well, everybody else was really worried about how they go, and he's not, so all right, I'm down for this. And even when he's going to go confront the giant, the guy's like, he's going to squeeze you to death. He goes, well, I can guarantee you he's not gonna.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because you know how you're going to die. So that was really, really cool. One of my favorite sequences is when Edward Bloom finds out the favorite flower of Sandra, who is the woman that he has fallen in love with at the circus, that he's now working to get, one piece of information of every month, is that she likes daffodils. So he ends up going to her college and just constructing this insane field of daffodils. And in that sequence, Edward Bloom is wearing a tie that is black with a red swirl on it. And that red swirl is an homage to Nightmare Before Christmas.
Really?
Yeah, if you look close enough in that scene when he's standing out there going like, Sandra, I will marry you. If you really look at that tie that's tucked into his jacket, it is the swirl that Jack Skellington usually walks along. And I thought that was a really great homage to early Tim Burton produced, not directed movies. And one other thing that I actually found very fascinating about this movie is I don't look at this movie as one of the greatest movies of 2003. It is a great movie, but I don't think it's like one of the greatest movies even ever made. It's just a great movie altogether. But this was nominated for an Oscar, and it was nominated for original score by Danny Elfman.
Tim Burton's longtime partner.
Yes, longtime collaborator.
And he's also the lead of the band Oingo Boingo.
I had no idea.
I know that because my amazing cousin Julian, who is not only really into music, but also obsessed with Oingo Boingo, gave me an education about that when I was younger and we were hanging out together.
That's badass. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
My father has played me a whole bunch of Oingo Boingo in the past, and I had no idea that it was Danny Elfman.
Yeah. And he is, as we mentioned, a very long time Tim Burton collaborator.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was the singing voice of Jack Skellington, for those that don't know that.
Yes, he's very talented.
Indeed. So there's a little bit more I wanted to get into about Big Fish before we go into one of my favorite little tidbits of our program. The script of Big Fish made its way to Tim Burton around the time that Tim Burton's father had actually passed away. So Tim Burton felt a very strong connection to this story and script and felt that he needed to make it. And I'm very glad that he did, because I'm sure there could have been other directors that could helm this and make it good, but Tim Burton really added that dark uncertainty portion of life to it. And I really like that because it really feels like an uncertain movie up until the last 15 minutes.
Yes, I would say it's one of his lightest movies, though.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
This is one of my favorite Tim Burton movies. It's beautifully made, and you're right. It wasn't even the best movie of 2003, but it is a beautiful movie.
Very, yeah. I definitely was wiping some tears off my face.
Yes.
And that's okay. I don't mind crying during movies.
I love it. It means that I'm invested in it, and the movie did its job.
Ah, there you go. Yes.
And speaking of tears, another favorite scene of mine is when Albert Finney, he's in the bathtub with all his clothes on, and he says, I feel like I was dried out a bit, and Jessica Lange gets into the bath with him with all her clothes on as well.
Yeah.
And she starts to cry because everyone knows he's dying, and she says, "I don't think I'll ever dry out."
Oh yeah.
And
That
I started crying right then. How beautiful of a relationship they had, and how it was portrayed in this movie was just lovely.
It really was, yeah. And the casting was great, too, because Alison Lohman definitely had a little bit of younger Jessica Lange going on, too. I really liked that. And beyond that, I really liked that every now and then Jessica Lange would take old Edward Bloom's thumb and put it in the cleft of her chin, because that was what he did as they spent their life together. And that was one thing that really, you could tell, comforted her as a woman, with the relationship that she had with her husband. I thought that was really nice.
Yes, and I think both of these movies did such a great job at having very well done subplots.
Oh, yes. I agree.
Because, Indiana Jones is an adventure movie and has this great father-son dynamic subplot to it. And Big Fish is a father-son movie, but has this beautiful husband and wife subplot to it.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Yeah, that's right, because Will Bloom is about to expect his first child, and he's married to Marion Cotillard's character, and he really wants to get down to the bottom of were his father's stories fact or fiction, so that he can pass on some of these stories to his son, because his son is never going to meet his grandfather.
Yes.
And it really brought me to a point when I was about 7 or 8, and my father lost his father, because I was so young, and I only ever hear stories from my father now about his father, and some of the stories that my father has told me are just incredible. And I wish that my grandfather, of course we never know when we're going to go, but I wish that I had gotten at least to 15 years old with my father's father, so that I could have a little bit more memory other than what I have now.
I'm very happy to hear that your father at least can tell you stories about him, though.
Yes, yeah. And he tells me in great detail, which I love. And that's another reason why I really like Big Fish, because every time his mother mentions to Will, "Oh, this is the letter that he wrote me when he was, parachuting in Korea." And he's like, "That was true?" Yeah. It's like, yeah, it was fucking true, dude. Like, your dad's not lying to you. Like, get the fuck over yourself. Like, the guy had a fucking killer life, and he wants to tell you so that you can tell it on and on. I just really like that this movie, as much as there's a resentment from his son, there is still a hunger to know, is this fact or not, and
who you really are.
Who you really are as a person, and were you really making it up to make your life sound cooler than it was? And no, no, I'm just telling you what I've experienced in my lifetime.
Dad, I have no idea who you are, because you've never told me a single fact.
I've told you 1,000 facts. Well, that's what I do. I tell stories.
You tell lies, Dad. You tell amusing lies. Stories are what you tell a 5-year-old at bedtime. They're not elaborate mythologies that you maintain when your son is 10 and 15 and 20 and 30. And I believed you. I believed your story so much longer than I should have, and then when I realized, of course, that everything that you said was impossible, everything, I felt like a fool to have trusted you. You're like Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny combined, just as charming and just as fake.
You think I'm fake?
Only on the surface, Dad, but it's all I've ever seen. Look, I'm about to have a kid of my own, and it would kill me if he went through his whole life never understanding me.
It will kill you, huh? What do you want, Will? Who do you want me to be?
Just yourself. Good, bad, everything. Just show me who you are for once.
I've been nothing but myself since the day I was born. And if you can't see that, it's your failing, not mine.
I feel like when I tell people certain things about what I've experienced, being open heart surgery, whatever, it's just, I sometimes leave with the insecurity that some of them think I'm just trying to make it more fantastical than it was.
Yes. Yeah.
Which open heart surgery is not fantastical, but it's fantastic that we're alive.
It is fantastic. And I like that, we are discussing a little bit of our own relationships with our fathers that are very good relationships. But I do like the fact that we picked 2 movies for Father's Day that have strained relationships in them.
Yeah.
because of the fact that not everybody has a great relationship with a parent or both parents or has parental figures in their lives. And so I think that these movies are very accessible for this holiday that we've had that traditionally celebrates fathers or father figures in your life.
I will agree with you 100%. So a little bit more about Big Fish. Let's get into more of the box office here and a couple other things. The budget of Big Fish was $70 million.
Whew.
And that's a pretty big budget. And I feel like that might have gone into more of the locations than anything else, because there were some pretty awesome locations in this movie.
Yeah, I would actually think set design and visual effects is where a lot of the money would go to, but also the top 4 billed in this cast are pretty weighty actors.
Oh, yes, they are. Yeah, Ewan McGregor, Albert Finney, Jessica Lange. Billy Crudup was
probably probably the lower paid of those 4, but still, he's been around for a while.
Right, and this actually was Marion Cotillard's first American film.
Oh, nice. That's a good entrance.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And so the U.S. box office for this film of $70 million only came in at $66 million. So it came under, which was definitely a bummer. The worldwide box office was $123 million. And not bad. It could have been better. I feel, though, that this was one of those movies that, because of the year that it came out, which it actually was released on Christmas Day of 2003, and the number 1 box office movie of that week was The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
Oh, whew.
Yeah. So we're looking at Big Fish as this heartfelt, heartwarming, also heartbreaking story about a father and his son. And then we have the number 1 movie of the week that it came out was Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. I don't think this movie necessarily flew under the radar. However, it kind of did, because it was number 21 of the week that it was released.
Oof.
Yeah. And that's really, again, it's not the end of the world, but like I said, number 1, Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Number 2 was a Tom Cruise-led film. I wonder if you can guess it.
2003?
Yeah.
Was it Minority Report?
No, it was not. Your hint is Asia.
Was it The Last Samurai?
Yes, it was.
Ah, nice. Okay.
Interesting, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this the first episode with my movie. I'm wondering if it was a genre fit problem for Big Fish.
It very likely could have been. Yeah, it could have been.
Because you watch the trailer, this does not really look like a Tim Burton movie in a lot of ways.
No.
And at the same time, it is a little fantastical, but not overly so. And it kind of is a family movie, but kids wouldn't necessarily enjoy it. I'm wondering if this is a genre fit problem and the reason why it didn't make a lot of money.
I think you might be right, actually, because it is several genres wrapped into one, and it, like you said, I don't know if it would be a very kid-friendly movie. Even now, it's not a tough one to get through. But another reason why I also think that this flew under the radar was because the top 100 movies of 2003 were pretty wonderful. A lot of them were very family-friendly, but not all of them. And I wonder if you can guess the number 1 movie of 2003, highest box office gross. It is a Pixar film. And you've guessed it already in an episode earlier.
Finding Nemo.
Yes, it was Finding Nemo.
Which is so interesting because of the fact that the very first note that I took while watching this movie is the opening sequence reminds me of Finding Nemo.
Oh, wow.
In the water with that score that sounds a hell of a lot like Finding Nemo.
It does, actually. Yes, it does.
That's the first thing I wrote down, so it's kind of funny. It's the same year.
Wow, yeah, look at that. So yeah, Finding Nemo, number 1 of 2003. Number 2 is another Disney-led movie, and it's a franchise movie. I wonder if you can guess number 2. Your hint is The Ocean.
Oh, it's a Pirates movie.
Which one?
2003. Is it the first one?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, Pirates of
Nice.
the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl was
Okay.
the number 2 movie of 2003, which I saw 3 times in theaters. And I actually did see Finding Nemo in theaters as well. My buddies and I decided to go to see it. And we did not know this until the end of the movie because we ran into them. My parents were also in the same
No
theater.
way. That's cool.
Watching Finding Nemo.
That's cool.
Yeah. Number 3 highest grossing of 2003 was The Matrix Reloaded. Number 4 highest grossing of 2003 was Return of the King. Number 5, one of my favorite comedies, Bruce Almighty.
Yes, that was a great movie.
Number 10, Bad Boys 2, which I really, really enjoy. And the number 27 is a Steven Spielberg-directed film with Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio. Catch Me If You Can. Yes. Number 33 is one of my favorite Russell Crowe, Paul Bettany films, Master and Commander, Far Side of the World. I think that movie is absolutely spectacular. Number 65 is my favorite horror film of all time, 28 Days Later.
Mm-hmm.
Number 67 was the Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Day-Lewis led film Gangs of New York.
I think it's insane that Return of the King was number 4 for the entire year of 2003, even though it came out I think the second week of December.
Did it really come out that late in the year?
Yeah. So it had
Wow.
2.5 weeks to make enough money to be number 4 for that entire year. That's bananas.
That's pretty amazing. That's
Yeah.
really bad. That's really fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that about does it for Big Fish, written by John August, directed by Tim Burton, starring Ewan McGregor, Albert Finney, Jessica Lange, Helena Bonham Carter, Danny DeVito, Billy Crudup, Alison Lohman. Just a great overall movie. If you're looking for a movie that is heartwarming, also may give you a little bit of a cry at the end, definitely give Big Fish a shot. If you have ever felt like you are a big fish in a small pond, absolutely watch this movie. It does open your mind, and it does make you feel like you can accomplish anything.
What a great summary. Yes. Wholeheartedly agree.
I really like the movie.
Do you want to tell people where you can watch it?
Yeah, you can watch Big Fish on Netflix right now. I ended up watching my 4K copy because I feel like Big Fish is one of those movies that as the formats change, I would like to have because of the way that it's shot and the way that it looks. It really is an illuminating movie. Other than that, I would likely watch this movie with my grandmother. I think she would enjoy it. It's, she likes telling stories as well, and she's another one that I really like to listen to, tell me stories about when her and my grandfather got married.
Nice. Yes, I agree. I think it's a great movie to watch with adult family members, not because of anything in the movie, but just because of the storyline. Kids wouldn't be really interested, but adults absolutely would.
Agreed, indeed.
And for my movie, I think anyone over the age of, say, 13 can watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, as well as the first one. Not the second one. The second one's way more creepy. Wait until they're a little bit older. But yes, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is a fantastic family-friendly movie. I think it is PG-13.
Yes.
And other than one scene at the very end that is a little bit creepy, it's very accessible.
Agreed. Great stuff. I really liked this episode. This was a good one. Made me, again, I really liked watching both movies. And again, Last Crusade I hadn't watched in at least 6 years and did not remember how it opened, and really liked to find out that I have actually seen a movie with River Phoenix, because I don't think I've ever seen him in anything else other than Stand By Me.
Yeah, the classic of his, right?
Yes, of course.
Well, I agree. I think this is a great episode too. I love the fact that we picked them for Father's Day, and hope that maybe you get an opportunity to watch one of these movies with the father figure in your life.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that about wraps up this episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcasts on any of the apps that you use. It helps so much, and it also is really, really meaningful to us, and we certainly appreciate it anytime we get a new rating or review or even follow on social media. You can find us at Movies You Missed Pod on all the social medias, and moviesyoumissed@gmail.com if you have any ideas, recommendations, or feedback for us.
Please do send us some recommendations. Please do follow us and interact, because I do like to have some fun with quizzes on our Instagram page.
Yes, you've been making some great ones lately.
Thank you. And as always, we like to have a little fun with our sign-off and say that film is a form of art. And in art, every opinion is valid, except if you think.
The Indiana Jones movies should have continued on after The Last Crusade.
Oh, agreed. Absolutely 100%.
Yeah. Stop while you're ahead, people.
Indeed. Well, thank you
right.
guys very much. That was a great one. We hope to have some more listeners and some more feedback. Do come back for our next week's episode, and we will catch you guys later. Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.